The United States of America quarter dollar dated 1966 is part of the transitional era of U.S. coinage that followed the Historic Coinage Act of 1965, an act passed by Congress in response to a nationwide silver shortage and rising silver prices that made traditional 90% silver coins increasingly expensive to produce. As a result, from 1965 onward, quarters were no longer minted in silver, but instead produced using a copper, nickel-clad composition, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its characteristic silvery appearance while being significantly cheaper to manufacture than the pre-1965 90% silver issues. The 1966 quarter, therefore, is part of the very first generation of modern clad coinage and holds historical significance for collectors as one of the earliest examples of this new era. All 1966 quarters were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, but interestingly, because of the coinage transition, the U.S. Mint suspended all mint marks from 1965 through 1967 to discourage hoarding and speculation during the composition change, so the 1966 quarter bears no mint mark, a characteristic that sometimes confuses new collectors. The obverse front features the familiar left-facing bust of George Washington, based on the 1786 sculpture by Jean-Antoine Houdon and adapted for coinage by John Flanagan in 1932. Around Washington's portrait appear several inscriptions. Liberty arcs across the top of the coin, acknowledging one of the founding principles of the nation. In God We Trust, the national motto officially adopted in 1956 is placed to the left of Washington's neck, and the year, 1966, appears at the bottom. The reverse, back, also uses Flanagan 1932 design, depicting a powerful American bald eagle with wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing the nation's readiness to defend its liberties, with olive branches placed below the eagle to represent the pursuit of peace. Above the eagle arches the inscription, United States of America, and directly below it appears the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many one, a phrase originally adopted for the Great Seal of the United States to express unity among the states. At the bottom of the reverse appears the denomination quarter dollar, clearly identifying the coin's value as 25 cents. In terms of physical specifications, the 1966 quarter has a mass of 5.67 grams, a diameter of 24.3 millimeters, and a reeded edge, all of which match the standards still used for modern U.S. quarters today. Although hundreds of millions were minted, making circulated examples common and typically worth their face value, well-preserved high-grade 1966 quarters, especially those in mint state condition or accidentally struck with exceptional sharpness or striking anomalies, can attract attention from numismatists. Proof sets were not produced for 1966 due to the mint's temporary replacement, special mint sets, which were the only way collectors could obtain specially struck 1966 coins. These sets feature a semi-proof-like finish, making their quarters more desirable. Overall, the 1966 Washington quarter stands as a historically important coin representing the moment when the United States shifted from traditional silver coinage to the modern clad system, retaining classic design elements, liberty, in God We Trust, E pluribus unum, as enduring symbols of American identity while ushering in a new era of practical, durable, mass-produced circulating money, the next top. The United States of America quarter dollar of 1968, part of the Washington Quarter series, represents a period in American coinage when the nation had recently transitioned from silver to clad metallic compositions, making the 1968 issue one of the early examples of the modern copper-nickel clad quarters still used today. On the obverse of the 1968 quarter, the portrait of George Washington, designed by the sculptor John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth, dominates the face of the coin, capturing both Washington's dignified profile and the neoclassical style favored in early 20th century American numismatic art. Above his head appears the word liberty, a central ideal in American identity, while to the left of Washington's profile sits the motto, In God We Trust, which has appeared on U.S. coinage since the Civil War and stands as a formal recognition of the nation's spiritual and philosophical heritage. Below the neck truncation, The date 1968 is clearly struck, identifying it as one of the coins produced during a time when the U.S. Mint was adjusting to rising silver prices and shifting monetary policies. The reverse of the coin features the heraldic American bald eagle, another of Flanagan's enduring designs, with wings spread proudly as it perches on an olive branch, symbolizing peace, while clutching arrows that signify national readiness to defend itself when necessary. Above the eagle, the phrase United States of America is inscribed in a bold arc, emphasizing national authority, followed beneath by the long-standing motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one, a reflection of the many states and peoples united under a single federal system. At the bottom of the reverse appears the denomination quarter dollar, making the coin's value unmistakable. The 1968 quarters were minted in Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver, D mint mark, and San Francisco, S mint mark for proof coins, and because silver had been removed from circulating quarters beginning in 1965. All 1968 circulating quarters were composed of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to an inner pure copper core, giving the coin its characteristic modern sandwich appearance when viewed along the edge. Although the 1968 quarter is generally common in circulated condition, higher-grade, uncirculated examples, pristine proof strikes from the San Francisco Mint, and rare minting anomalies such as double-die obverse varieties, off-center strikes, or clipped planchet errors, are of interest to collectors, who value the coin not only for its physical attributes but also for its place in the numismatic history of the United States during a time of economic transition. As a whole, the 1968 Washington quarter represents American artistry, symbolism, and evolving monetary practices, making it a meaningful piece whether kept as a collector's item, a historical reference, or a simple reminder of the enduring national ideals inscribed upon its surfaces. The next top. The 1978 United States quarter dollar is a circulating American coin belonging to the Washington Quarter Series, which was introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Its design became standard for decades. The 1978 quarter is composed of a clad metal structure introduced in 1965, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin a distinctive silvery appearance while maintaining durability for long-term circulation. On the obverse front of the coin is the well-known left-facing portrait of George Washington, originally sculpted by John Flanagan, a design that remained unchanged, with minor refinements, for more than 60 years. Above Washington's head appears the word Liberty, a foundational value emphasized on most U.S. coinage. Just to the left of Washington's neck is the national motto, In God We Trust, formally adopted across U.S. currency in the mid-20th century, expressing a historic and cultural sentiment that became a statutory requirement for American coins. Beneath the portrait is the year 1978, indicating the date of minting. The coin weighs 5.67 grams, has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters, and a reeded, grooved edge designed originally as an anti-counterfeiting measure during the time when coins contained precious metals. The reverse back of the 1978 quarter also continues Flanagan design, featuring a majestic heraldic eagle with wings outspread, symbolizing American strength and vigilance. The eagle perches on a bundle of arrows, representing military preparedness, while below the arrows lies a laurel wreath, a classical emblem of victory and honor. Above the eagle is the inscription, United States of America, and below it appears the motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many, one, a phrase referencing the union of the states into a single nation. This motto has been used on American coins since the 18th century and remains a prominent statement of national unity. Beneath the wreath is the denomination quarter dollar, indicating the coin's value of 25 cents. The 1978 quarter was struck by two U.S. mint facilities, Philadelphia, which produced coins with no mint mark, and Denver, which used the D mint mark, found on the obverse to the right of the ribbon at Washington's ponytail. Unlike silver quarters made before 1965, the 1978 quarter contains no silver, making it primarily valuable as a collectible when in high-grade condition. Most 1978 quarters are common, with hundreds of millions minted, meaning circulated examples generally hold only face value, though uncirculated or professionally graded pieces with exceptionally sharp detail and nowhere can be worth more. This coin sits within a transitional era just before the 1980s, carrying forward traditional designs that would later be replaced by the 1999 to 2008 state quarters program. Despite being common, the 1978 Washington quarter remains a small historical artifact of the United States monetary system, representing long-standing national symbols, political mottos, and artistic heritage, making it interesting to collectors, historians, and anyone fascinated by the evolution of American the next top. The United States of America 1984 D. Washington quarter dollar is a circulating coin struck by the Denver Mint, identified by the small letter D on the obverse, and belongs to the long-running Washington Quarter series first issued in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse side of the 1984 D quarter features the left-facing portrait of George Washington, sculpted by John Flanagan, with the inscriptions Liberty above his head and In God We Trust placed to the left of his profile. The year 1984 appears below the bust, and the mint mark, D, sits just to the right of the ribbon of Washington's ponytail. The reverse shows the classic heraldic American bald eagle design, also by Flanagan, depicting a bold eagle with outstretched wings clutching a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation, while olive branches below the arrows represent the desire for peace. Above the eagle are the words, United States of America, with the enduring national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, placed prominently beneath it to emphasize unity among states, and the inscription quarter dollar curves along the bottom to denote its denomination. Like all quarters of this era, 1965 to 1998, the 1984 D is composed not of silver, but of a copper-nickel-clad structure, a durable outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its familiar silvery appearance while keeping production economical. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins, making the 1984 D quarter common in circulation. However, collectors still examine factors such as strike strength, luster, surface preservation, and the presence of unusual die varieties or errors such as clipped planchets, off-center strikes, die cracks, or filled-in mint marks that can make individual coins more desirable. While most circulated examples hold only face value due to high mintage, sharply detailed, uncirculated pieces with original mint luster, often graded MS 65 or higher by numismatic services, are more collectible and can have modest collector value. In daily use, the coin remains an example of traditional American symbolism, echoing themes of liberty, trust in national ideals, unity among states, and the historical continuity of U.S. coinage. Its inscriptions, Liberty, In God We Trust, and E pluribus unum, carry constitutional, cultural, and historical significance that reflect the nation's identity. Altogether, the 1984 D. Washington quarter represents an accessible piece of American monetary and historical heritage, bridging practical circulation needs with more than half a century of numismatic tradition the next top. The United States of America 1988 D. Washington quarter dollar is a circulating coin struck by the Denver Mint, identifiable by the D. Mint mark placed on the obverse just to the right of George Washington's ribbon ponytail, and it represents one of the many clad quarters produced during the late 20th century when the mint had fully transitioned from silver to copper-nickel composition. The obverse, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, the first president of the United States, originally based on Jean-Antoine Houdon's 1785 bust, and surrounding the portrait are the traditional inscriptions, Liberty positioned boldly across the top, reflecting the foundational ideal of the nation, In God We Trust, placed to the left of Washington's profile as part of the long-standing national motto, and the date, 1988, at the bottom center, marking the year of issue, while the metallic composition for all quarters of this era is a clad sandwich of an outer 75% copper/25% nickel alloy bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its characteristic pale silver luster and resistance to corrosion. On the reverse, also designed by Flanagan, appears the iconic heraldic eagle with wings spread majestically, perched upon a bundle of arrows that symbolize military readiness. And beneath the arrows lies an olive branch representing the nation's desire for peace, an intentional balance of strength and diplomacy. Above the eagle arcs the inscription, United States of America, while directly below that and above the bird's head is the motto, E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one, signifying the unity of the states, and below the eagle, forming the lower curve of the coin, appears quarter dollar, identifying the denomination. Quarters from 1988 are generally common because the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of them, making the majority worth face value in circulated condition, though collectors may look for high-grade, uncirculated examples with strong strikes, fully visible details in the eagle's feathers, clean fields, and minimal contact marks, which can be valued higher, especially those graded MS 65 or above. Importantly, the full visibility of inscriptions such as Liberty, In God We Trust, and E Pluribus Unum is typically standard unless the coin is heavily worn, and the strike quality of 1980s quarters varies slightly by batch, leading some hobbyists to search for exceptionally sharp Denver-struck specimens. While no major regular issue 1988 D varieties are widely recognized, collectors occasionally look for minor die cracks, die clashes, off-center strikes, or other minting anomalies that can add numismatic curiosity. Overall, the 1988 D Washington quarter stands as a classic example of late 20th century American coinage, reflecting continuity in design since 1932, embodying national mottos and symbolism, and serving as both a functional piece of currency and a collectible artifact of U.S. monetary history. The next top. The 1990 D United States quarter dollar, struck at the Denver Mint, is part of the long-running Washington Quarter Series, first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and by 1990 it had settled into its familiar copper-nickel-clad composition introduced in 1965 after the end of circulating silver coinage. Specifically, the coin consists of an inner core of pure copper and outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it the distinct silvery color that collectors recognize today. The obverse front of the 1990 D quarter features the well-known portrait of George Washington sculpted by John Flanagan, which remained in use for decades on U.S. circulating quarters. Above Washington's head appears the word Liberty, representing one of the foundational values of the United States, while to the left of his portrait is the iconic national motto, In God We Trust, officially added to American coinage in the 1950s but deeply rooted in U.S. cultural and historical identity. Just to the right of Washington's ponytail is the D Mint mark, identifying that the coin was minted in Denver. The date 1990 appears at the bottom of the obverse, marking a year in which over 500 million quarters were produced nationwide, with the Denver Mint contributing a significant portion of the year's total mintage. The reverse, back, of the coin continues the traditional heraldic eagle design used from 1932 through 1998. It displays a bold, spread-winged eagle perched upon a bundle of arrows, symbolizing military readiness, while beneath the arrows lies an olive branch, representing peace, a deliberate combination echoing America's motto of strength balanced with diplomacy. Above the eagle arcs the inscription, United States of America, followed by the national motto, E pluribus unum, out of many one, a phrase reflecting the unity of the states and the blending of cultures that form the nation. This motto has appeared on U.S. coins since the late 18th century and continues to carry symbolic significance. At the bottom of the reverse is the denomination quarter dollar, indicating the coin's value of 25 cents. The 1990 D quarter is not considered rare in circulated condition because the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of them, making it a widely available piece of everyday American numismatics. However, collectors often seek high-grade mint state examples, especially those graded MS 66 or MS 67 by professional grading services, because these can command a premium compared to regular circulated pieces. While the coin is common, it still represents an important period in U.S. coinage history, just before the radical design changes introduced with the 50-state quarters program in 1999, which means the 1990 D quarter serves as one of the last examples of the classic Washington Eagle design that remained largely unchanged for over 60 years. In everyday circulation, the coin's details often show light wear on Washington's hair, the eagle's feathers, and the small lettering, but well-preserved examples retain a sharp strike and attractive luster typical of Denver Mint coins of the era. As a collectible, the 1990 D quarter offers both beginners and advanced numismatists an accessible piece of U.S. monetary history, featuring foundational national symbols: Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, E Pluribus Unum, the American Eagle, and the portrait of the first U.S. President ***, all combined into a single, familiar coin that millions of Americans handled daily during the late 20th century. The next top. The 1993 P United States of America quarter dollar, part of the long-running Washington quarter series, represents a continuation of the classic design first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and the 1993 issue reflects the late 20th century form of this iconic coin, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the small P mint mark placed on the obverse side to the right of George Washington's ponytail. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of George Washington, originally sculpted by John Flanagan, with the word Liberty prominently arched above Washington's head, symbolizing the foundational American ideal that the nation was built upon. Beneath the chin appears the motto, "In God We Trust," added in accordance with the long-standing tradition of placing the national motto on U.S. coinage as an expression of cultural identity and political heritage. The date 1993 sits at the bottom center, anchoring the coin in its specific moment in numismatic history. The reverse of the 1993 quarter retains the heraldic bald eagle design created by Flanagan for the original 1932 coinage. The eagle stands with wings partly outstretched, perched on a bundle of arrows that symbolize national strength and readiness to protect the country, while an olive branch lies beneath the eagle, conveying the dual ideal of peace and resilience. Above the eagle is inscribed, "United States of America," asserting the issuing nation, and just below that appears the Latin motto, "E Pluribus Unum," meaning "out of many, one," a reference to the unity of the states and the diverse population of the United States. The denomination quarter dollar is placed below the eagle. In terms of metal composition, the 1993 P quarter continues the clad formula introduced in 1965 after rising silver prices ended the use of 90% silver. It is made of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its characteristic silvery appearance and durability for circulation. The Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of 1993 P quarters, making circulation strikes common, although high-grade uncirculated coins, or those with exceptionally sharp strikes, may hold notable interest for collectors. As part of its cultural footprint, the Washington quarter, of which the 1993 P is a representative example, served as the standard 25-cent piece in American commerce for decades before the introduction of major design changes, beginning in 1999 with the 50-state quarters program. The inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and "E Pluribus Unum" together express the philosophical pillars of American identity: liberty as a founding principle, trust in a higher power as acknowledged by long-standing tradition, and unity from diversity as the bedrock of national cohesion. For collectors, a 1993 P quarter is typically valued for its condition, luster, strike quality, and any minor die variations or errors such as off-center strikes, die cracks, or double dies, though standard circulated examples generally hold modest monetary value due to the high mintage. Nonetheless, the coin remains a meaningful piece of American numismatic history, embodying the transitional period of the 1990s before the sweeping changes that would redefine the quarter's imagery for a new generation. Its design preserves nearly all elements of the original 1932 artistry, making the 1993 P issue both a functional currency item and a small, enduring representation of national symbolism, historical continuity, and the aesthetic tradition of U.S. Mint engraving the next top. The 1994 United States quarter dollar is part of the long-running Washington Quarter Series, which began in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth and remained in use, with the same basic design, until the state quarters program replaced it in 1999, making the 1994 issue one of the final years of the classic Eagle Reverse. Minted at the Denver Mint, which is denoted by the D Mint mark that appears just to the right of Washington's ponytail, the 1994 D quarter was produced in large quantities for circulation and is therefore widely available today. On the obverse side front of the coin is the traditional portrait of George Washington, originally created by sculptor John Flanagan, who adapted his design from Jean-Antoine Houdon's famous 18th-century bust of Washington. This portrait faces left and has become one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Above Washington's head is the word Liberty, a key inscription found on nearly all U.S. coins, representing one of the foundational ideals of the nation. To the left of the portrait, close to Washington's chin, appears the motto, "In God We Trust," which became a standard inscription on U.S. coinage after the mid-20th century and reflects the nation's historical and cultural values. Beneath the portrait lies the date, 1994, clearly marking the year of minting. Turning to the reverse side, back, of the coin, you will find the classic heraldic eagle design, also by John Flanagan, in which a bold and impressive eagle, symbol of American strength and national identity, spreads its wings with a bundle of arrows in its talons, signifying readiness to defend the nation, while an olive branch lies beneath the eagle or is represented as part of the design to symbolize peace. Above the eagle arches the phrase, "United States of America," and directly beneath that appears the traditional motto, "E pluribus unum," meaning, "out of many, one," emphasizing the unity of the states forming a single nation. At the bottom edge, the denomination is clearly stated as quarter dollar. Like all Washington quarters minted from 1965 onward, the 1994 D quarter is composed not of silver, but of a clad metal alloy, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core, giving the coin its characteristic silvery appearance while keeping production economical. The diameter remains the standard 24.26 millimeters with a reeded, grooved edge, and the weight is 5.67 grams. In terms of mintage, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these coins, making the 1994 D relatively common in everyday circulation. As a result, most circulated examples hold only face value, though uncirculated, high-grade, or mint-state specimens, especially those graded MS 66 or above by professional grading services, can carry a modest premium among collectors. Errors from this year are always of interest to numismatists as well. Examples may include off-center strikes, die cracks, double dies, and other minting anomalies, which can significantly increase a coin's collectible value depending on their visibility and rarity. Historically, the 1994 D quarter represents the final era of the pre-state quarter design because only a few years later, beginning in 1999, the reverse design would change annually to honor each of the 50 states, ending the decades-long run of the Eagle Reverse. Collectors often view coins like the 1994 D as part of the late 20th century standard circulation coinage of the United States, and they are appreciated not only for their role in commerce, but also for their reflection of American symbolism, artistic heritage, and minting technology. Although the 1994 D quarter is generally not rare, it still offers insight into the evolution of American money, the values and national mottos, liberty, in God we trust, E pluribus unum that the country places on its coinage, and the enduring legacy of George Washington's image as both a historical figure and a cultural icon within everyday the next top. The United States of America 1996 D quarter dollar is an example of the long-running Washington Quarter Series, a coinage design first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The Washington quarter became the standard circulating 25-cent piece in the U.S. and remained unchanged in its obverse portrait for decades until the state quarters program began in 1999. A 1996 D quarter, minted at the Denver Mint, indicated by the D mint mark, belongs to the late era of the traditional eagle reverse Washington quarters. Produced in extremely large numbers, hundreds of millions, the 1996 D quarter is considered a common circulation coin, but it remains meaningful to collectors because it represents one of the final few years before dramatic changes in U.S. commemorative coinage began. The obverse front of the 1996 D Washington quarter features the well-known bust of George Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan. Washington's profile faces left, with his hair tied back in a colonial-style queue. Above his head appears the word liberty, a core American ideal and one of the most important concepts represented in U.S. coinage. To the left of Washington's neck is the national motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase formally adopted for U.S. coinage in the 1950s but used on various coins long before that. This motto reflects the historical belief in divine guidance acknowledged by the U.S. government in its monetary symbolism. Just to the right of the bust, usually near the lower portion, is the mint mark D, confirming its production at the Denver Mint in Colorado. Below Washington appears the date 1996, representing both the year of minting and the coin's place within the later decades of the 20th century American economy. The reverse back of the 1996 D quarter retains the classic heraldic eagle design, which had been used since 1932. This striking image, also created by John Flanagan, shows a bald eagle with wings spread wide, symbolizing strength, vigilance, and national pride. The eagle clutches a bundle of arrows, representing military readiness and the ability to defend the nation, and sits atop an olive branch, symbolizing peace and diplomacy. Above the eagle are the inscriptions United States of America and the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, which means out of many one. This phrase emphasizes the unity of the states forming one nation, a concept central to American identity. Below the eagle appears the coin's denomination, quarter dollar, confirming its value of 25 cents within U.S. currency. In terms of physical properties, the 1996 D quarter is part of the modern clad composition era. Earlier Washington quarters from 1932 to 1964 were made of 90% silver, but starting in 1965, the U.S. Mint shifted to a copper-nickel clad composition due to rising silver prices. Thus, the 1996 D quarter consists of an outer layer of cupronickel, 75% copper, 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. This gives the coin its familiar silvery appearance on the outside while maintaining durability for heavy circulation. The coin has a diameter of 24.26 millimeters, a thickness of 1.75 millimeters, and a reeded edge, the tiny grooves on the outside, originally added to prevent fraudulent shaving of precious metal from old silver coins. Historically, the 1996 D quarter marks an interesting moment in U.S. numismatics. Just 3 years later, in 1999, the Mint would introduce the 50-state quarters program, completely replacing the eagle reverse with rotating designs honoring each state. Because of this change, the 1996 D stands as one of the last classic Washington eagle reverse quarters. For collectors, circulated examples of the 1996 D are common and generally worth face value, although mint state or high-grade certified pieces can hold more value. Its significance lies not in rarity, but in its representation of the final chapter of a long and stable design tradition stretching back to the early 1930s. Overall, the United States of America 1996 D quarter dollar combines national symbolism, decades of monetary tradition, historical design elements, and the powerful mottos Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and E pluribus unum, all of which reflect the ideals, history, and identity of the United States. It is a small but meaningful artifact of American currency, bridging the late 20th century to the numismatic changes of the early 21st century. The next top. In 1996, the United States of America stood as a nation marked by both continuity and change, reflecting its deep historical roots and ongoing evolution as a global power. Founded in 1776, the United States had long embraced guiding principles that shaped its identity, including the mottos, "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum," each reflecting different dimensions of the nation's philosophy and cultural heritage. "In God We Trust" had been officially adopted as the national motto in 1956 during the Cold War, a time when America sought to distinguish itself ideologically from the atheist Soviet Union. This phrase reflects a national recognition of religious faith as a cultural cornerstone, appearing prominently on coins, currency, and in public institutions as a symbolic affirmation of the moral and spiritual framework underpinning the country's civic life. Meanwhile, "E Pluribus Unum," Latin for "out of many, one," has been part of the American ethos since the nation's founding. First used on the Great Seal of the United States in 1782, it embodies the ideal of unity amidst diversity, capturing the vision that a single nation could emerge from many colonies, cultures, and peoples. By 1996, this motto had become a central emblem of the American experiment, emphasizing inclusivity, pluralism, and the blending of distinct regional, ethnic, and immigrant communities into a coherent national identity. That year also marked a period of relative prosperity and political stability in the United States under the administration of President Bill Clinton, with significant developments in technology, international relations, and domestic policy. The nation was experiencing the early stages of the internet boom, economic growth following the recession of the early 1990s, and the cultural impacts of globalization. Socially, Americans continued to grapple with issues of race, gender, and equality, seeking to balance traditional values with emerging new norms, while debates about the role of religion in public life intersected with discussions about civil liberties and national identity. In libraries across the nation, including those funded by both public and private initiatives, Americans had access to rich archives documenting the country's founding principles, historical documents, and evolving interpretations of its mottos. Here, citizens could explore not only the literal meanings of "In God We Trust" and "E Pluribus Unum," but also the philosophical, political, and cultural debates that had shaped and would continue to shape their significance. The phrase "In God We Trust" reminded Americans of the enduring influence of faith and moral guidance in public life, while "E Pluribus Unum" served as a constant reminder that unity and diversity were not contradictory, but complementary, forming the core of what it meant to be American. Thus, 1996, while often remembered for economic growth, cultural shifts, and technological innovation, also reflected the ongoing resonance of these foundational mottos in the national consciousness, linking the contemporary United States to its historical origins and providing a lens through which to understand the country's identity, aspirations, and challenges. Libraries, government buildings, coins, and currency served as tangible reminders of these ideals, ensuring that citizens could encounter and reflect upon the principles that have long guided the nation's civic and moral life, and continue to inspire debate about the meaning of American unity, faith, and cultural diversity into the 21st century.